Week number 9, fantasy football waivers show. We have some waiver ads, guys that would drop, some buy lows, some sell high, all those type of things. Once again, I have 3 fantasy videos coming out per week. If you're interested, then please subscribe, and we'll do some more videos relating to fantasy football coming up here. So anyway, here's some guys I would add. We'll start with quarterback Taysom Hill, who is 3% owned. Of course, this comes in the wake of the ACL injury to Jameis Winston, which I feel terrible for him because I love Jameis. I love the pregame, speeches he has, the workout videos. I'm going to miss all that stuff, so it sucks that Jameis is out. But for Taysom Hill, is he the best real-life quarterback? No. But is he a good fantasy quarterback? Yeah, we've seen that last year. Taysom Hill, when he stepped in for Drew Brees last year as a starter, put up these performances: 24.2 points, 18.5, 23.6, and 19.9 as the Saints starting quarterback last year. And that 24.2 was actually versus Atlanta, who they faced this week. So is there a chance Trevor Siemian plays? Yeah, but I think for the most part it's going to be Taysom Hill. But keep up with what Sean Payton's saying. If they actually announce that Trevor Siemian's the starter, then hey, don't start Taysom Hill. But if they announce that Taysom Hill is their starting quarterback, then play Taysom Hill. I think that's fine. I think he has enough rushing upside. Now, Taysom Hill, him coming into this lineup may impact a guy like a Alvin Kamara or a Mark Ingram because, of course, Taysom Hill is going to take his goal line rushes. He's going to have his opportunities to score as a rusher at the goal line. That will take some opportunities away from Kamara or even Mark Ingram. That might hurt some receivers like Marquez Callaway or Traquan Smith or eventually Michael Thomas if he ever comes back. So kind of be concerned about that in a way. We saw Mark Ingram come back last week actually and play like 29% of snaps. Alvin Kamara had a season low in snap percentage. I'm not saying sell Alvin Kamara, but be aware that Mark Ingram was traded for last week, and then Alvin Kamara played his lowest percent of snaps on the season. So there's a bit concern there for me. I have Kamara in a league. I'm not looking to trade him, but I'm just saying like the playing time may not be what what it has been. Like Kamara was getting like 24, 25 carries in some spots. I don't know if that's happening anymore. So, have to be aware of the whole Mark Ingram thing. It sucks. But anyway, back to what I was saying. Pick up Taysom Hill. He's a good dual threat guy. He should get some rushing touchdowns throughout the year. And as long as Trevor Siemian's not the starter, Taysom Hill should have some very viable fantasy weeks going forward. Next, we have Jeremy McNichols, running back of the Tennessee Titans. Of course, Derrick Henry's going to be out for the year, it sounds like, or at least out for 8 weeks, which is pretty much the rest of the fantasy season. So someone in that Tennessee backfield has to kind of take over and be a starting level running back. And it could be Jeremy McNichols. It could be Adrian Peterson. We don't know. McNichols, though, is worth picking up. McNichols is the guy who's been there the entire year. Adrian Peterson's now 36, I saw. I thought he was like 34. He's 36, so that's crazy. But anyway, McNichols is a good enough pass catcher. He's had games this year with 12 targets, 4 targets, 3 targets, 3 targets, 2. So he has some receiving ability. I think the Titans have used him as a receiver in the past. And McNichols as a runner has not really had the most rushing opportunities, honestly. On the year, he only has 7 rushing attempts, but 38 yards, 5.4 a carry. Last year, he had 47 rushing attempts for 4.3 a carry. So he's not the worst rusher, but Jeremy McNichols is now a 26-year-old who has not really had much opportunity in his NFL career. So it's not like he's the most talented guy in the world, but as I said, someone has to be the starter for this Titans team. Now, is there a chance that Adrian Peterson and McNichols split time? Definitely. But McNichols is probably going to be the receiving down guy. So that's why I prefer McNichols over Peterson right now. Honestly, that's what I think. But if Peterson comes in and scores all the rushing touchdowns, then that could change. So there's a world where Adrian Peterson comes in and he's just automatically the Derrick Henry replacement and he plays the Derrick Henry role. Although that would be crazy. I don't see a team giving 36-year-old AP like 25, 30 carries a game, but you never know. So I would prefer McNichols based on the receiving volume. I think this is more of an uptick for Ryan Tannehill and A.J. Brown and Julio Jones and the pass catchers. This should be more of a pass-heavy offense going forward and not as much run-heavy as they have been in the past. So if you want to buy A.J. Brown, if you want to buy Julio Jones, who I'm concerned about with the injury, but if you want to buy low on Julio Jones right now, that might be worth it. So anyway, Jeremy McNichols has a chance to be a league-winning guy possibly. If he really steps in and Adrian Peterson's just a depth signing and doesn't play much, McNichols has a chance to be, a guy that could be like an RB2 the rest of the year, maybe even RB1 if things go right for him. So he could be a receiving back, and if he plays like, 70, 80% of the snaps at running back, he could definitely be a league-winning type guy. So it's worth taking a shot on him. I just don't know who's going to play more out of AP and McNichols. So that's the concern we have. I think that McNichols is going to be better, but we'll see how it plays out. Next, we have a string of wide receivers here. First is Jamison Crowder, wide receiver for the Jets. And although Crowder doesn't play the most snaps in the world, he played 61% of snaps this past week. He played 80% 2 weeks ago. But Crowder is a usable player in especially full PPR leagues. Even half PPR, he won't kill you. He'll be fine. Crowder this week had 9 targets, 8 catches, 84 yards, and a 2-point conversion. Crowder's a guy I like. When he's out there, he usually produces. I mean, he hasn't been the most healthy player throughout his career, but when he's out there, he's fine. I mean, getting 16.4 full PPR points last week is nothing to be mad at. It's a good performance. So the Jets are usually going to be playing from behind, so there will be more passing opportunities. I don't expect Mike White to lead the NFL in passing yards every week, but still, the Jets are going to be playing from behind, and Jamison Crowder should see his opportunities. So Crowder so far this year in games he's played, he's had 19 points, 8 points, 7 points, and 16. So 7's his lowest. It wasn't even like that bad of a game, so he's not going to hurt you too bad. Crowder's like a fine, wide receiver 3, a low-end wide receiver 3 type play or a flex play that he won't kill you. He'll be okay in full PPR, half PPR. It's like, you could probably find a better option, but still, if you want to throw him in there, if you have guys on bye weeks or something, and Jamison Crowder is fine for me going forward. Next, we have Rashad Bateman, 31% owned wide receiver for Baltimore. Of course, Baltimore did not play this week coming off their bye, but Rashad Bateman came in and started, getting involved pretty much right away. I think Bateman had 80 receiving yards in his last game. We'll look at it real quick here, but Bateman came back a couple games ago. In his first game, he had 6 targets for 4 catches, 29 yards. Then in week 7, the last time they played, he had 6 targets again, but 3 catches for 80 yards. So Rashad Bateman, while he might be the third option in this offense behind Mark Andrews and Marquise Brown, he's worth owning because this year we are seeing Lamar Jackson throw the ball more. The Ravens don't have any running backs that are worth giving a crap about. Latavius Murray hasn't been that great. Devontae Freeman's Devontae Freeman, and Le'Veon Bell's Le'Veon Bell. So, they're going to pass the ball more, and Rashad Bateman's a talented first-round pick, and if he's in there and playing some snaps, he's going to get his targets, he's going to have his big games, and I think he's worth owning. And if something were to happen to Mark Andrews or Marquise Brown, Rashad Bateman might be an every-week type starter, so he's worth putting on your bench right now and seeing how things go. You can play him like he's playing Minnesota in Week 9. I feel like that's not the worst matchup. You can play him in that game, but especially if, one of the guys in front of him goes down, he's going to be like an every-week option going forward. Next, we have Devontae Parker, who's right now owned in 36% of Yahoo leagues. Now, this is a guy that I told you guys I would not play him, and I was wrong about that. Devontae Parker came back and had 11 targets in his first game. He missed the prior 3 games with a hamstring issue, but came back and got a bunch of targets. He had 16.5 full PPR points in week 8. He had 11 targets, 8 catches, 85 yards. Did not find the end zone, but that's still if your receiver's getting 11 targets, you can play him. So Devontae Parker this week gets the Houston Texans coming up, so that's definitely a playable game there for Devontae Parker, and he is still their wide receiver 1 technically. You can say what you want about Jalen Waddle and how talented he is. Mike Gesicki's been getting a lot of targets with Tua, but if Devontae Parker comes back off a 3-week absence and gets 11 targets, you got to pick him up. So I do think you can pick him up. You can probably play him versus the Texans. I mean, I don't see why not. So Devontae Parker is definitely worth picking up. He might be owned in more competitive leagues. He's not available in any of my leagues right now, but he is 36% owned, so he's going to be out there in some leagues. And I think Parker has a chance to be a wide receiver 3 the rest of the way if he's healthy, because he can't stay healthy. But if he's healthy and playing, Devontae Parker could be a wide receiver 3 going forward. Next, we have some breaking news. I don't have a cool breaking news type sound here, but Henry Ruggs, the Las Vegas Raiders wide receiver, got in a bad accident this morning, and right now he could be facing a felony charge of a DUI resulting in a death. So someone in the accident unfortunately passed away. I'm assuming the person he hit. So there's a chance, we'll see what comes out of this, but there's a chance that Henry Ruggs may have been the cause of someone's death in an accident. So, obviously he might not play going forward. He might be in a lot of trouble. So, just letting everybody know about Henry Ruggs there. That's an awful situation. So, yeah, I don't expect him to play. We'll see what happens going forward. Anyway, Pat Friarmuth, tight end for the Steelers. This is a guy that, I think a lot of us have on our radar, and we're hoping that he would be a thing this year. Now, Eric Ebron did not play in week number 8, I will say that, but in result of that, Pat Friarmuth played 78% of snaps. So Pat Friarmuth is the rookie second-round pick, and if he's out there, I would pick him up. I think he's talented enough, and the Steelers have a high investment in him. A lot of times, rookie tight ends don't make too much noise, but the past couple weeks here, so he played in week 6, they had a week 7 bye, then they played in week 8. In week 6, Friarmuth had 7 targets, 7 catches, 58 yards. That was a 12.8 full PPR point performance. Then this past week had 7 targets, 4 catches, 44 yards, and a receiving touchdown, a 14.4 full PPR performance. So Pat Friarmuth is now playing over Eric Ebron the rest of the way, which he should. I hate Eric Ebron. Sorry, Eric Ebron, but I don't like Eric Ebron. So if he plays over Eric Ebron the rest of the way, Friarmuth's probably a low-end tight end 1. And we know Ben Roethlisberger, with his years of Heath Miller and even Vance McDonald and some other guys, loves throwing to the tight end position. So Friarmuth, especially with Juju Smith-Schuster out for the year, is going to work over that middle of the field, and he should be a fine tight end option the rest of the way. So if you're in a situation where your tight end position sucks, and a lot of us are in that position right now. Like, I have Gronk in a league. I have Dawson Knox with the hand injury, who could come back. I get that, but I have, I have Logan Thomas / Ricky Seals-Jones on a bye, so I might start Friarmuth this week. So hopefully he's fine. He plays Chicago coming up on Monday night, and Chicago's right now giving up the second fewest points to tight ends according to Yahoo. So not the best matchup, but if Friarmuth's going to get 7 or 8 targets, I think he's startable, and I would definitely pick him up going forward, with the possibility that he gets more involved with the Steelers offense. Next, we have Dan Arnold, a guy that I talked about in the videos last week, I believe. I don't know if he was in the Waiver show or the Start show, I forget, but I talked about Dan Arnold, and Dan Arnold's fine to pick up. Ever since he's been on Jacksonville, he was traded in week 2, I believe, but ever since he's been on Jacksonville, he's been just a pretty solid option. He's had weeks where he's had 4 points, and another 4-point game, but he's also had weeks where he had 10 points, and then this past week had 14. So Dan Arnold, you could do worse. At the tight end position, it's tough to find guys getting targets, and Dan Arnold, the past 3 games, he's had 8 targets, 5 targets, 10 targets. You don't see that too often with tight ends, so you could do worse. I would definitely pick up Dan Arnold. I may have to start him in a league this week as well. So he's playing Buffalo in week 9, which is, once again, not the best matchup. They have, Edmonds and Milano at linebackers, so they have some good coverage guys, but if Dan Arnold's going to play on a Jacksonville team playing from behind most cases, there's some potential for garbage time here, and we saw Marvin Jones and Laviska Shenault not get too involved here in week 8, so Dan Arnold may be one of the favorite targets for Trevor Lawrence right now. So I would pick up Darnold. You could play him probably in some cases, maybe not this week because of the matchup, but I would pick up Darnold as a fine tight end 2 to have on your bench. Next, we have Tua Tagovailoa as a quarterback streamer here in week number 9. So Tua came back in week 6 after missing 3 games in a row, and Tua's been fine for fantasy. He had 22 points in his first game back. That was the one in London against Jacksonville. Had 28 against Atlanta. Then had 16 in Buffalo. That's a tough matchup, though. I'll give him a slight pass for that. But the good news is that this week he plays the Houston Texans, and according to Yahoo, the Houston Texans have allowed the 6th most fantasy points to opposing fantasy quarterbacks. So Tua's in a great matchup this week. They should put up a lot of points. Miami does not run the ball very well, so Tua should get hopefully a high amount of fantasy points in this matchup. He now has Devontae Parker back. He has Mike Gesicki. He has Jalen Waddle. This should be an opportunity for Tua to put up a lot of points. And, the running game for Miami is not there. Myles Gaskin on the ground has not been that great. Salvon Ahmed has not been used that much as well. So if they're going to pass the ball a lot of times here, this is a great spot for Tua to put up points. Tua's had 47 passing attempts, 40 and 39. They're going to pass the ball. So as long as they don't get up 31-0 in the first half, I think Tua's going to pass the ball a lot in this matchup, and I think he's a fine start here for week number 9. Next, we have Boston Scott. So yes, I'm an idiot. I recommended picking up Kenneth Gainwell last week, and it made all the sense in the world. I mean, during the season, Boston Scott was barely getting used. Kenneth Gainwell was the backup running back all year, and then their starter, Miles Sanders, goes down, and then they go to Boston Scott, who hasn't played. It just makes no sense. Up until week 7, Boston Scott had 2.5 fantasy points on the year in like 6 games. So I don't know where this came from, but yeah, we have to kind of adjust our perception of this Eagles backfield now. So Boston Scott's the number 1 guy. It seems like Jordan Howard's the number 2 guy, and Kenneth Gainwell is the number 3 guy. It was a tough game to kind of, get a gauge on. You would have to watch it to understand, because right now Kenneth Gainwell had 31% of snaps in week 8, and Jordan Howard had 25%, and Boston Scott had 45%. But Kenneth Gainwell didn't really start playing a lot until the game was over. It was like 38-0 this game. So Kenneth Gainwell, while he had a lot of snaps in this game, not a lot, but like a good snap percentage in this game, a lot of it did not come until the fourth quarter. So I think right now the running back rotation for Philly is going to be probably like 65-35 in favor of Boston Scott, and maybe, I don't know, the rest of it goes to Jordan Howard, maybe a little bit goes to Kenneth Gainwell. So Boston Scott is technically the Eagles' starting running back right now. Now, I don't know if I love him going forward. He's not like a smash play here, but they do play the Chargers, and the Chargers are giving up the 5th most points to running backs this year. The Chargers have one of the, if not the worst run defense in football. So this is a spot, though, where I think the Chargers should win this game, I think, against the Eagles. And this one is in Philly, but the Chargers should win it. The Eagles should be playing from behind. Boston Scott is a good receiving back, as we know. So Boston Scott, in my opinion, is playable in week number 9. He's not like an RB1 for me, but still, I think Boston Scott's playable. He won't hurt you too much, but Kenneth Gainwell, you can drop him. I don't see the reason of hanging on to him right now. And Jordan Howard is just a touchdown play. If he doesn't score, doesn't find the end zone, he's pretty useless. So I would not play Jordan Howard, but Boston Scott's definitely startable in my opinion here in week 9. Next, we have Adrian Peterson, who is 6% owned. Now, Adrian Peterson, as I mentioned, 36 years old. I'm not thrilled about the signing, but at the end of the day, someone's got to get these running back opportunities here for the Titans, and the Titans have a good offense, as we know. If Peterson gets, I would guess that Peterson's going to get 10 to 15 carries per week. He'll have some opportunities to score touchdowns. I feel like Peterson's going to be very touchdown dependent. You can use Adrian Peterson as a receiver, but that's not what he's always been great at. So he's more of a downhill runner between the tackles guy. So I think Peterson, in matchups where the Titans are heavily favored, I think Peterson's fine, but I'm not comfortable playing him most weeks. He's probably a low-end flex in my opinion, so I'm not dying to get Peterson. He's a great name, of course. He's a future Hall of Famer, but at 36 years old in this situation, he's not going to be the receiving down back, I don't think. So, I would add Peterson with maybe something crazy happens. Maybe he just fills in the Derrick Henry role and he gets 20 carries a game. That would be crazy in my opinion, but maybe it happens. So Peterson's worth adding. I wouldn't spend too much on him. I'd put $1 on him for, fab bids, and I wouldn't waste a waiver on him. But, still Peterson is worth adding and just seeing what happens for the Titans backfield in week number 9. Next, we have Latavius Murray. I refuse to give up on the guy. He's had weeks this year where he's been bad. He had a 2-point week and he had a 5-point week, but he's also had 8, 9, 11, and 13. So a lot of it depends on if he finds the end zone, and you can't really predict touchdowns. That's the worst part of it. Volume usually leads to more touchdown opportunities, and Latavius Murray is not playing a ton of snaps. He's playing in the high 30s, low 40% most times, but this is like a 3-way backfield between him and Le'Veon Bell and Devontae Freeman. But it does seem like when they get inside the 10-yard line, Latavius Murray's often the running back they want to use. So he is the goal line back for the Ravens, and that's a high-powered offense. So in matchups where the Ravens should win and put up a lot of points, which is most times, I feel like Latavius Murray's an okay flex play. Yes, it depends if he finds the end zone, but if you're in a pinch and you need someone to play and Latavius has a good matchup, you can put him in there and he might get you 8 to 11 points and not hurt your team completely. So I still would want to keep him on my bench. I have him in a league right now just to see what happens going forward, but he's not like a smash start going forward, that's for sure. But anyway, for a defensive streamer, I have the New Orleans Saints. They were dropped in a lot of leagues because they played Tampa last week, although they ironically had the 3rd most defensive fantasy points in week number 8. But if the Saints are available in your league, they play the Atlanta Falcons at home, so this is a great matchup, of course. There's probably going to be no Calvin Ridley. This is a Matt Ryan-led offense that has not been good this year, and they can get to the quarterback. The Saints have a good secondary, so I expect a lot of points here from the Saints defense in week 9. Next, for a trade for candidate, we have Nick Chubb. So there's a few guys I would trade for. Let me list them actually real quick. So Justin Jefferson, coming off a bad game, would trade for him. Dalvin Cook I would trade for. There was another guy I wanted to trade for. Now I forget. Anyway, but Nick Chubb, definitely worth trading for in my opinion. With Kareem Hunt out, it's basically Nick Chubb's backfield. We saw a little bit of Dearness Johnson, and Nick Chubb's fantasy day did not look as good because Dearness Johnson is the one that got the touchdown. Dearness Johnson only had 4 carries, but found the end zone, so his day was fine. Nick Chubb, though, had 16 carries, but only had like 77 yards. So, of course, his fantasy owners are going to see like the 7 points he had and be like, oh, Nick Chubb's not good anymore, and they might be a little concerned. So if I can get Nick Chubb on the cheap right now, I definitely would. Actually, he had 61 yards, sorry. So he had 16 carries for 61 rushing yards. But if I can get Nick Chubb here and his owner's freaking out, like I'll take advantage of that because Nick Chubb right now is going to be the lead back by a lot. Like Dearness Johnson's not going to play the Kareem Hunt role. Basically, it's going to be Nick Chubb playing until he's tired, and I will take that for sure. The Browns have Cincinnati coming up, New England, Detroit, and Baltimore. Some pretty decent matchups coming up here. So as long as the Browns offense can be like decent, which they haven't been recently, but if they can be decent and get near the goal line most times, Nick Chubb's going to be a pretty nice buy low here going forward. A guy I'm willing to sell right now is Antonio Gibson. Unfortunately, I know he was like probably a low first round pick, high second round pick for a lot of people, but it's just not coming to fruition right now. He's dealing with the shin injury. He was taken off the injury report, but Jarrett Patterson had more carries than him this week. J.D. McKissick played the most in that backfield this week. It's not looking good for Antonio Gibson. Now, Washington's on bye. If you can still trade Antonio Gibson with the name value, I would do it. I don't see things getting much better. There's a bye for them, plus they have 2 very tough matchups coming up. So, yeah, I would trade Gibson for sure. I don't really think he's going to have any impact in the next few weeks here. So, yeah, I'm fine getting rid of him, especially if you need to win right now. DeAndre Swift I would trade for. I was not the biggest Swift guy coming into this year, but he's been a stud so far. He had a very off game against the Eagles, including a fumble. I'm kind of willing to throw that one out the window. Jamal Williams missed this game due to injury, and DeAndre Swift's still their guy. Detroit's going to be playing from behind most weeks, and Swift is the receiving back there, so I'm fine trading for DeAndre Swift coming off that bad week. Now, players you can cut, Odell Beckham Jr., this one hurts. I'm a big Odell fan, being a Giants fan, but he had 1 target this game and actually 1 catch for 6 yards. So, yeah, it was rough game for Odell. He has not really had any playable weeks outside of the first week he was back. I think the first game he had, 12 full PPR points, but outside of that, it's been single digits ever since, and Odell's clearly injured out there with the shoulder, so yeah, he's definitely worth dropping in my opinion if you need to. Kenneth Gainwell for the Eagles, I talked about him briefly. He was the 3rd running back in that rotation, so no point holding on right now. And running back David Johnson. So David Johnson, I posted on Twitter, is worth adding because, Mark Ingram was traded, and we would assume that David Johnson would play more as a result. But of course, Rex Burkhead had a bunch of snaps in that game, so David Johnson was barely used. So David Johnson is another guy who, if you need to drop him, you can. I know he was probably drafted in like the 8th or 9th round. I was very much against drafting him this year, but David Johnson, just based on the name value, it's not worth it anymore. He's not going to be a playable fantasy option in most weeks. So yeah, David Johnson's fine. He can go. So that will do it for this video. Hopefully you guys enjoyed, and I will talk to you guys for the start sit video on Thursday or Friday.